Welcome to the Deep Dive by 5W Media. Today we're tackling something really crucial in our information-saturated world. Understanding and hopefully breaking free from echo chambers. As lifelong learners, you're likely aware of this concern, how easily we can find ourselves surrounded only by information that echoes back what we already believe.
Yeah, it's a big topic. And for this exploration, we've gathered insights from several key places. We've got research from political science now, looking at an experiment on echo chambers and political views, specifically in the UK.
Okay.
Then there's a big review from the Reuters Institute examining, how real echo chambers and these things called filter bubbles actually are.
Right.
We'll also pull in some practical advice from Impress on just navigating all this information, plus perspectives from Eon Essays and Henry Ford Health on what echo chambers are and, crucially, how to get out.
And we'll even look at a discussion from Reddit, from Our Socialism 101, where users are grappling with this exact issue in their own online spaces.
Exactly. So a good mix of academic research, practical tips, and real-world discussion.
So our mission today is really to unpack these different angles, get a solid grasp on what echo chambers truly are, how they might be affecting our understanding, and maybe offer some actionable strategies so you can cultivate a more diverse, balanced view.
Sounds good.
Okay, so maybe the best place to start is just definitions. What actually is the difference between an echo chamber and a filter bubble? Are they the same thing?
That's a great starting point. They're related but distinct. The Reuters Institute makes a helpful distinction here. They say an echo chamber is an environment where opposing views aren't just missing, they're actively discredited. There's often this element of distrust towards outsiders or different opinions.
Wait, so it's like building walls and shooting down anything that comes over them. It's not just passive filtering.
Exactly. Whereas a filter bubble is often described as more about what you don't hear. It's where you're mostly exposed to stuff that aligns with what you already think, often because of, algorithms.
Yeah.
Ah, okay. So the algorithm sees, say, posts about gardening, so it just keeps showing me more gardening posts and fewer posts about, particle physics, even if that might be interesting too.
Precisely. Impress uses filter bubbles in a similar way too, applying it to both online and even offline situations where your existing beliefs just get reinforced.
Okay.
And Eon Essays backs this up. They even compare echo chambers to cults, in a way, because of that strong distrust of outsiders. They contrast that with epistemic bubbles, which are like filter bubbles, seeing those as more about accidental emission, often driven by those algorithms.
So one's more about deliberate exclusion and distrust, the other more about maybe unintentional narrowing.
That's a good way to put it, yeah. Though both end up limiting your perspective, the underlying dynamic is a bit different.
Okay, got the definitions. But how common are these things really? Is everyone stuck in a bubble? Well, here's where it gets interesting. The Reuters Institute review actually suggests that the original filter bubble idea that algorithms are drastically narrowing everyone's news diet isn't always backed up by the data.
Oh, really? I thought that was kind of accepted wisdom now.
It's complicated. Some studies, including ones in Europe and the UK, find that things like search engines and social media might actually expose some people to slightly more diverse news than they'd get otherwise.
How does that work? Seems counterintuitive.
Well, think about automated serendipity, stumbling across something unexpected the algorithm throws up, or incidental exposure, seeing an article a friend shared that you wouldn't normally look for.
Okay.
However, and this is key, the review also stresses that self-selection is huge. People who are already highly partisan often choose to only consume news that confirms their views. That's where you can get real echo chambers forming.
So it's less the tech forcing us and more us choosing to stay in our comfort zones.
That seems to be a big part of it. And the data suggests these really strong partisan online echo chambers might be smaller than we sometimes think, at least in many European countries.
But still, they exist. And that study you mentioned from Political Science Now looked at the impact.
Yeah.
Even if they're small.
Yes, exactly. That UK study showed that even if these echo chambers aren't universal, they do have a measurable effect on polarization when people are in them.
Okay, tell me about that study. How did they set it up?
They took UK voters who identified as Labour or Conservative supporters and had them discuss a specific policy, a stricter immigration proposal online. Some were put in like-minded groups, so only Labour supporters or only Conservative supporters. Those are the echo chambers. Others were put in mixed groups.
Right, a control group, essentially.
Sort of, yeah, a comparison group. And they looked at what happened to people's views and feelings.
What did they find? Did the echo chambers polarize people?
They did, on two levels. First, ideologically so, their stance on the actual policy. Labor supporters in the echo chambers became less supportive of the stricter policy compared to those in mixed groups.
Okay.
And conservative supporters in their echo chambers became more supportive compared to those in mixed groups. Their views moved further apart.
So hearing only reinforcing arguments made them dig their heels in more. Makes sense. What was the other level?
Effective polarization. That's about feelings towards the other side.
What?
People in the echo chambers developed warmer feelings towards their own party members and colder, more negative feelings towards the opposing party compared to the mixed groups.
Wow. So it wasn't just about the issue. It was about liking us more and disliking them more.
Exactly. And interestingly, that effect was a bit stronger for the labor supporters in that study, maybe the researchers thought, because they were the opposition party at the time.
So these spaces can really amplify both policy differences and that sort of tribal us versus them feeling.
That's what the evidence suggests.
Now, thinking about why we even gravitate towards this stuff, Henry Ford Health mentioned confirmation bias, right? That seems key.
Absolutely key. Confirmation bias is just that fundamental human tendency to, seek out, interpret, and remember information in a way that confirms what we already believe. We kind of filter reality to fit our existing ideas.
Yeah, they had that example about left-handed people and creativity.
Right. If you believe lefties are more creative, you'll notice and remember every creative left-handed person you encounter, and you might just ignore or forget the creative right-handed people or the not-so-creative lefties.
We build our own evidence pile, basically.
Pretty much. It's a mental shortcut, but one that can really trap us.
So, given this bias and the potential for polarization, why is breaking free so important? It sounds like hard work.
It is hard work, but both Henry Ford Health and Impress really emphasize that getting diverse perspectives is just essential for a more complete and objective picture of reality. If you only see one angle, your understanding is inevitably limited.
Yeah, you miss crucial pieces of the puzzle.
And Eon Essays connects this to the whole post-truth idea in a really interesting way.
Oh, yeah. How so?
They argue that maybe what looks like people just rejecting facts isn't quite right. Instead, it might be more about trust being manipulated within echo chambers.
Okay.
So people inside develop this very specific set of trusted sources and authorities, often completely different from those trusted outside the chamber. It's not that they don't believe in truth, it's that their sources for what is true have diverged dramatically.
That's a really powerful point. It's less about the facts themselves and more about who you trust to tell you the facts.
Exactly, which makes just throwing facts at someone potentially ineffective if you haven't addressed that trust issue.
Okay, so this brings us to the practical side. How do we actually do it? How do we break free? What are the strategies?
Right, the action plan. Well, Impress and Henry Ford Health offer quite a few. The most basic one is just actively seeking out diverse content. Be intentional about it.
So don't just stick to your usual news sites or feeds. Go looking for different viewpoints.
Yeah, look for ideological diversity, cultural diversity, even geographic diversity in your sources.
And it's not just the sources, but the people too, right?
Yeah.
Following different voices.
Expand your network. Follow people, content creators, thought leaders who challenge your assumptions, who don't just agree with you all the time.
That can feel uncomfortable, but probably necessary.
Definitely. And tied to that is developing critical evaluation skills. Impress really stresses this. Fact check. Look at multiple sources. Think about bias, not just theirs, but yours too. Verify claims.
Be a skeptical consumer of information. Look for signs of trustworthiness, maybe.
Yes, things like the Impress Trust Mark can be an indicator. And generally, practicing news literacy, learning to spot misinformation, propaganda tactics like emotional appeals or taking quotes out of context.
It's about being an active, critical reader, not just a passive recipient.
Exactly. And cultivating critical thinking overall. Question assumptions, your own included. Ask, what's the other side of this?
Henry Ford Health also had that great point about constructive controversy, how to talk to people you disagree with.
Yes. Engage respectfully. Use phrases that invite explanation, like help me understand your perspective on this, or acknowledge their viewpoint, even if you don't share it. Avoid just shutting down discussion.
And they also mentioned reading broadly, like books about different experiences.
Yeah, reading fiction or nonfiction about lives and cultures different from your own. It builds empathy, expands your understanding. It's another way to step outside your own bubble.
And maybe just being self-aware, asking yourself if you might be in an echo chamber.
Crucial first step. Henry Ford Health suggests asking, do my sources only show one side? Do they rely on rumor, Do they ignore facts that contradict their narrative? Be honest with yourself.
Okay. Now, what about that Reddit discussion, our Socialism 101? What came out of that?
That was interesting because it was people within a specific ideological group recognizing the danger themselves. One suggestion was getting involved in real-world local organizations to get perspectives beyond just online talk. Break out of the purely digital space.
Get face-to-face with different people, even if they broadly agree with you.
Yeah, potentially find more nuance that way. Another idea was to ground discussions more in reading specific books or texts together rather than just reacting to headlines, making the conversation more focused and maybe less echoey.
So connect to the real world and maybe deepen the substance of online discussions.
Yeah.
Makes sense. And Eon Essays had that really powerful story about Derek Black.
Yes, the Derek Black story is, I think, incredibly important here. He left the white supremacist movement.
Right.
And the key wasn't people just arguing facts with him. It was the personal connections, the kindness and trust built with people outside his echo chamber, like the Jewish student who invited him to Shabbat dinners.
Yeah.
It was human connection breaking through.
So escaping isn't always an intellectual exercise. It's often deeply social and emotional. It's about rebuilding trust.
Absolutely. Eon highlights that repairing broken trust is often central. And goodwill from trusted outsiders is vital.
They also had that term, evidential preemption. What was that about? Sounds a bit ominous.
It is a bit unsettling. It's the idea that within a really strong echo chamber, encountering contrary evidence can actually backfire. Because the echo chamber's narrative has already framed that outside evidence as, part of a conspiracy or proof that outsiders are deceptive. So the evidence doesn't challenge the belief. It gets reinterpreted to confirm the echo chamber's worldview.
Wow. So just presenting facts might actually strengthen their resolve.
Yeah. Which underlines that you often can't just logic someone out. You have to somehow address the trust framework itself.
Eon called it needing a social epistemic reboot, right? Like resetting your whole system of belief and trust.
Yeah, a temporary suspension of belief, a willingness to re-engage with information and people with fresh eyes. It's a huge ask, but maybe what's needed sometimes.
Definitely sounds challenging, but vital if we want to keep learning and understanding the world better. Okay, so as we wrap up this deep dive, it feels clear that navigating all this information today really requires intention. A commitment to staying curious.
Mm-hmm. The digital age gives us amazing access, but yeah, the echo chamber challenge is real. It can limit us, contribute to polarization.
But the good news, I think, is that we can do something about it. By understanding how these things work, by actively using strategies like seeking diverse sources, thinking critically, engaging respectfully.
Yeah, you as dedicated learners can absolutely push back against those limits. You can cultivate that richer, more nuanced understanding. Learning is exploration, and embracing different perspectives is just fundamental to that.
Absolutely. Well said. If you like what you're hearing from us, please subscribe. Also, if you would like and share this video, it helps us tremendously and means so much to us. Please also leave a comment. We want to know what you think and value ideas you might have for future podcasts. Thanks for tuning in.